Did you know the Brown family once claimed their strength came from total unity, yet today that same family stands divided in a way fans never imagined possible? For years, Sister Wives viewers watched Christine and Janelle Brown navigate heartbreak, loyalty, sacrifice, and deep-rooted frustration in a polygamous marriage that demanded more than it ever gave back. But now, just when the dust seemed to settle, a bombshell accusation has erupted across social media that Christine and Janelle are refusing to accept any responsibility for the massive family estrangement tearing the Browns apart. Fans are calling it denial. Critics are calling it selective truth, and insiders say the story goes far deeper than what the cameras ever captured. This is the raw, emotional breakdown of the blame, the hurt, and the truth behind why the Brown family may never look the same again. Christine Brown and Janelle Brown, once the quiet stabilizers of the vast Brown family tree, now find themselves thrust into the center of a storm they never asked to confront publicly. In a spiraler saga of emotional distance, personal empowerment, shattered polygamist ideals, and a family legacy divided by unresolved tensions, accusations have begun circulating that the two women are refusing to take any responsibility for their own role in the Brown family estrangement. What began as subtle tension beneath the surface has now erupted into a deeply public conflict filled with conflicting narratives, emotional revelations, and painful memories making their way into cameras, confessionals, and fan discourse. For years, Christine and Janelle were the picture of calm endurance, women who endured the emotional chaos of plural marriage in silence, while Cody navigated his identity as a patriarch who believed he was balancing the needs of 4 wives and nearly 20 dozen children. But as Christine and Janelle stepped forward with newfound independence and personal identities separate from the long-standing family order, they began rewriting the narrative of their lives. That rewriting, however, has sparked a backlash from critics, viewers, and even some family insiders who argue that the women are choosing empowerment without acknowledging the wounds they may have also contributed to, especially in their relationships with their children, sister wives, and Cody himself. The tension did not form overnight. It grew over years of unresolved issues disguised as tolerance. It grew while the cameras rolled and the family expanded geographically, emotionally, and spiritually. It grew while Cody found himself stretched too thin, while Robin became increasingly central, while Mary became isolated, and while Christine and Janelle tried to maintain a peace that was never sustainable. Now, however, with the family fractured across states and across emotional landscapes, a new focus has emerged. Who is accountable for the estrangement that seems to have become permanent? As the public narrative shifts toward Christine and Janelle's role in the fractured family dynamic, their supporters argue that the women finally found their voices after decades of dismissing their own needs. Their critics, however, insist that choosing freedom does not erase a responsibility to acknowledge the consequences that followed, including the widening distance between siblings, the unresolved resentment between children raised under an astronomical emotional load, and the deep brokenness that now defines the Brown family as the world once knew it. What follows is an in-depth exploration of how this latest conflict in the Sister Wives universe has spiraled into a conversation not just about blame, but about personal healing, truth-telling, and the legacy of a plural marriage that began idealistically but ended scattered across emotional fault lines. The Brown family once symbolized unity under a shared vision of plural love. Their televised journey, one that captivated audiences for years, unfolded as a story about a group of adults determined to make plural marriage work despite the odds. Christine, Janelle, Mary, and Robin each brought different strengths, hopes, and conflicts into the family. But while early seasons highlighted the charm, humor, and logistical complexity of sharing a husband, later seasons revealed the reality behind the painted smiles, a structure that demanded enormous sacrifices, emotional compromise, and a silent endurance from the women. Christine, for instance, once openly confessed that she felt like the basement wife for years. Her position within the family often felt secondary, especially as new dynamics emerged after Cody married Robin. Manel, meanwhile, entered the family with a pragmatic mindset, believing she could find stability, partnership, and independence within the plural marriage system. For years, she succeeded at maintaining her emotional boundaries by focusing on work and her children, but even she eventually found herself confronted with emotional neglect she could no longer justify. As the family expanded physically into new homes in Las Vegas and later Flagstaff, emotional cracks widened. The wives' relationships with each other fluctuated between sisterhood and silent estrangement. The children grew accustomed to divided holidays, divided loyalties, and complicated schedules. And hovering over everything was Cody's struggle to maintain balance as the perceived head of the family. The early unraveling began slowly. Christine questioned the fairness in the family dynamic. Janelle questioned the emotional distance she felt from Cody. Mary found herself completely isolated. The wives no longer saw each other as collaborative partners, but as competitors in a system that demanded unity but delivered tension. When Christine ultimately made the decision to leave Cody, it sent a shockwave through the entire Brown family structure. Her exit became the catalyst for deeper revelations, not just for viewers, but also for the family itself. Suddenly, unresolved issues could not be buried under shared holidays or weekly dinners. The emotional distance became physical distance. Children began choosing sides. The women began writing their own narratives. Cody began expressing feelings that had previously simmered behind his attempts at diplomacy. And then came Janelle's break. Not loud, not dramatic, but stern, resolute, and irreversible. With Christine and Janelle stepping into their new lives, Christine marrying David Woolley, Janelle embracing independence, the narrative seemed complete. But fans and family insiders began raising an uncomfortable question. Is the estrangement entirely Cody's fault? Or do Christine and Janelle also bear a degree of responsibility for the growing emotional distance between siblings and co-parents alike? The criticism began brewing online long before it reached the attention of the wider media. Fans noticed that Christine and Janelle had not been actively maintaining relationships with some of the adult children who remained close to Cody or Robin. They noted that certain siblings from different branches of the family no longer appeared together in photos, reunions, or social gatherings. Allegations soon surfaced that some of the estrangement was caused not by Cody alone, but also by choices Christine and Janelle made while prioritizing their new lives and personal boundaries. The question of responsibility is complicated, and for many, incredibly sensitive. It is easy to blame Cody, who himself became more vocal about his hurt, anger, and confusion as his family began to splinter. But in recent seasons of Sister Wives, Cody began hinting that the divide was not unilateral. He suggested in several emotionally charged confessionals that Christine and Janelle's independence, while empowering, also disrupted the family unity in ways that could not be undone. From his viewpoint, their departures created fractures between siblings who once relied on shared living arrangements, shared traditions, and shared identity. Some fans believe Cody's narrative is simply an attempt to deflect accountability. After all, his increasingly contentious relationship with his older children, his perceived favoritism toward Robin, and his struggle to maintain emotional presence all contributed to the unraveling of the plural household. But even some critics of Cody acknowledged that the dissolution of such a massive family does not fall on one person alone. If Christine and Janelle refuse to take responsibility, as critics claim, it raises the question, what responsibility exactly should they shoulder? Part of the debate revolves around sibling relationships among the Brown children. Before the major split, the kids enjoyed a large, interconnected network of siblings and cousins who grew up navigating the same unusual family structure. After the separations, however, several sibling groups became isolated, unable or unwilling to maintain the bonds they once had. Some viewers argue that Christine and Janelle, by choosing independence and distancing themselves from Flagstaff and from the shared family culture, played an indirect role in this divide. Their critics believe that the emotional priorities shifted toward their own children rather than toward the extended family unit. The other part of the debate touches on their accountability toward their shared spiritual covenant. While Christine and Janelle have emphasized their need for personal autonomy, a move widely praised, Their detractors insist that leaving the marriage meant leaving behind a structure in which their actions had consequences for everyone involved. By stepping out of a plural marriage without actively working to repair internal wounds, some claim they left behind emotional debris for their children and co-wives to sort through. Christine, especially, has been under scrutiny for being openly critical of Cody's behavior on the show, while purportedly limiting her own involvement in reconciling strained relationships. Janelle, too, has faced similar criticism, though to a lesser extent. Some observers claim that Janelle's hands-off style of mothering and her strong lean toward independence sometimes created unintended emotional gaps within the family. But supporters of the women find these criticisms unfair. Christine and Janelle endured decades of a system that often did not prioritize their emotional needs. They sacrificed stability, self-expression, and personal peace trying to maintain a family structure that often marginalized their voices. As many argue, expecting the women to repair the emotional fractures after years of imbalance is not only unreasonable, it's unfair. That burden, they argue, belongs largely on the shoulders of the man who constructed the family hierarchy to begin with. On social media, debates intensify in real time as fans divide themselves into factions. Team Christine, Team Janelle, Team Cody, Team Robin, Team Kids. The discourse often feels like a tug of war between nostalgia for the family the Browns once portrayed and the reality of what they became. Christine's supporters argue that she finally broke free from emotional suffocation. They point to her newfound joy, her marriage to David Woolley, her confidence on social media, and her willingness to speak openly about her long-stifled frustrations. They believe she owes no apology for choosing happiness. Janelle's fans similarly applaud her strength, especially after enduring financial stress, emotional neglect, and the burden of managing 6 children largely on her own. They argued that her stoic nature made her appear emotionally distant, but she worked tirelessly for family unity, far more than she is given credit for. Yet, critics continue to insist that empowerment does not erase accountability. Christine's public statements, sometimes humorous, sometimes pointed, have been accused of inflaming tensions rather than soothing them. Some believe she is rewriting history to paint herself in a better light. Others claim Janelle's refusal to publicly acknowledge any role she might have played in the family conflict only deepens the divide. The controversy intensified further when insiders close to the family suggested that some of the Brown children themselves felt caught in the middle. According to these sources, certain siblings struggled with feelings of abandonment as Christine and Janelle built new lives in different states, worlds away from the family roots they had established together. While many of the kids remained close to their mothers, some reportedly wrestled with confusion about their place in the family after the separation. If the Brown family estrangement is ever to heal, it may require more than one person stepping forward. It may require difficult conversations, mutual accountability, and a willingness to acknowledge mistakes, including those made by Christine and Janelle. Of course, healing is a choice, and for some, it may not be a choice they are ready to make. Christine, living a life of renewed joy and partnership, appears determined to redefine her identity independent of the Brown family narrative. Janelle, still grieving the loss of her son Garrison and still navigating her own emotional journey, remains in a delicate place where personal healing may feel more urgent than revisiting old wounds. Meanwhile, Cody continues to assert that he has been unfairly depicted as the sole reason for the family collapse. Whether viewers agree or not, his frustration adds another layer to the already complicated dialogue about who bears responsibility. Ultimately, the story of the Brown family estrangement is not a simple one. It is a tangled web of decades-long tensions, emotional misunderstandings, shifting loyalties, changing identities, and painful reckonings. It is a story about people who once believed in something extraordinary, plural marriage, only to find themselves facing the emotional consequences long after the cameras stopped rolling. Perhaps the current conflict, including accusations that Christine and Janelle refuse to take responsibility, is simply another chapter in the ongoing saga, a chapter filled with raw honesty, conflicting truths, and unfiltered human emotion. Or perhaps it is the moment the Browns finally begin confronting the deeper issues that have always been waiting beneath the surface. Either way, the world is still watching, and the Browns, whether united or divided, remain one of reality television's most emotionally complex families. Christine Brown and Janelle Brown, two women once hailed as the emotional anchors of the enormous Brown family structure, now stand at the heart of a controversy that has spiraled into one of the most divisive conversations in Sister Wives history. For more than a decade, viewers saw them as calm, strong, unwavering pillars inside a system that placed extraordinary emotional pressure on each of the women. But now that the family has fractured beyond recognition, critics have begun pointing fingers at Christine and Janelle, accusing them of refusing to acknowledge their own roles in the growing estrangement that has consumed the Brown family. The accusations have spread like wildfire, stirring intense debates among fans, family insiders, and those who have followed the Browns since the earliest days of their journey. To understand how Christine and Janelle, once the quiet peacekeepers, became the focus of such heated criticism, one must return to the earliest days of their plural family life. Back then, the Browns promoted themselves as a picture of harmony, unity, and a unique form of sisterhood held together by shared values of love, faith, and cooperation. Christine represented tradition and optimism, a woman deeply committed to the principles of plural marriage. Janelle embodied independence and practicality, someone who balanced motherhood with ambition and financial stability. Together, they formed an essential part of the emotional foundation that kept the family functioning even when tension and rivalry quietly brewed beneath the surface. But beneath the smiles and the scripted confessional segments existed a reality much more complex. Christine struggled for years with feeling undervalued and unseen in a marriage where her emotional needs went unmet. She often hoped that love could be found within her spiritual union with Cody, but instead, she frequently found herself overwhelmed by jealousy, loneliness, and disappointment. Janelle, on the other hand, approached the plural marriage with a logical mindset, often intentionally separating her emotional life from the chaos around her. She built her world around her children and her career, distancing herself emotionally whenever the family tensions reached unbearable heights. In those early days, neither woman publicly acknowledged just how unstable the family structure truly was. They held back tears, swallowed disappointment, and did everything in their power to maintain a peaceful environment for the children. But peace was never something the Browns could sustainably maintain. As the family grew and moved from Utah to Las Vegas to Arizona, the emotional cracks widened. The wives no longer shared the same closeness. The children felt the division. And Cody struggled to exert the level of control or influence he once had. When Robin entered the family, the shifts intensified. Her arrival marked a turning point for Christine, who felt increasingly displaced. For Janelle, it marked a redirection of emotional energy in the family, one that she chose to ignore as long as she could. The wives' relationships with one another deteriorated, though they often masked their discomfort behind polite interactions.